Hello and welcome back to the channel once again. My name is Andy and today we are here to review the British Grand Prix Round 10 of the 2018 Formula 1 World Championship, and by golly have we got a lot to go through this Sunday evening as we look back on today's race and including the weekend's action as well. As I always like to start though, if you are watching this either live or watching it back, thank you very much for watching this race review. If you do like the race reviews from myself, do hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any time I'm posting them up through the rest of the season. And it also means you don't miss out on any other videos from myself. Make sure you hit the bell icon as well, of course. Hit the like button. It's always good to know that people are enjoying the video, so please do hit that like button, give me a thumbs up, and comment below what did you enjoy about this race, which had quite a lot to talk about, but we will come on to the action from Sunday in just a moment. We do start though with a review from the start of the week. One of the big stories during the week was McLaren sporting director, I think his official title was, but anyway, Eric Boullier resigned from the Woking team, a move which he said even just weeks prior that he wasn't going to resign over the poor fortunes of the former world champions, but he has moved on, and Gilles de Ferran, former IndyCar Champ Car champion, has moved in to his place instead, and former Ferrari engineer and Alonso engineer as well, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, I feel so bad, but he's moved into a sporting role as well in the side, which made many to believe that Alonso had something to do with this, even though the team and him deny it, and it's making some believe that maybe he will stay with the McLaren team for 2019. Still a lot of speculation around him. It looks like Daniel Ricciardo is going to stay with Red Bull. It's been fought for that for a while. He's came out this week saying the main options for 2019, the exciting ones, have now gone. The only position really left is Lewis Hamilton's seat, and it's been expected he will re-sign for the World Champions very, very shortly. Into the weekend itself, Friday and Saturday practice sessions, a ding-dong fight between Mercedes and Ferrari as they traded blows through the weekend. This has predominantly been a Mercedes track here at Silverstone, but Ferrari were able to come up trumps as well in practice and even into qualifying. A few bits from practice, there was a few spins. Obviously it being a big airfield track, a lot of drivers got caught out with the wind conditions through the weekend, and also with the DRS being available through turn 1 and 2 as well, with one of 3 DRS zones. The most notable casualty of that in practice being Romain Grosjean in the FP1 on the first practice on Friday. It actually put him out of practice 2 altogether. And Max Verstappen had a gearbox issue in practice 1. It was a Friday gearbox, so there was no penalties there for him. The big bit, of course, though, from practice, which everyone will have no doubt seen, was the incredible accident for the Toro Rosso of Brendan Hartley. The New Zealander just cannot get any luck right now at all in that Toro Rosso, and coming down the Wellington Straight, which is the second DRS zone, hit the brakes coming into Brooklands, and the front left suspension decided it had had enough, and this was only on his out lap, his second lap. He hadn't done much, and it pitched him sideways across the gravel into the tyre wall, around about 170 miles an hour, but the New Zealander walked out totally fine, but he missed out on qualifying, and it was to be, in the end, actually the end of his entire weekend as well, but we'll come to that in a moment. Into qualifying itself, qualifying 1, Carlos Sainz was the main casualty. He finished in P16. Terrible run of luck for the Spaniard at the British Grand Prix in recent years, and it just continued this weekend as well. Through into Q3 though, it was Hamilton taking pole in front of the home fans. He was literally shaking when he got out of the car. He had put that much effort into it. Sebastian Vettel took second, Raikkonen was third, Bottas fourth, and the 2 Red Bulls fifth and sixth, complaining of being up to 80 horsepower down on the front 2 teams, and that was just obviously not good round a very power hungry circuit that Silverstone is. Shout out again, no, Charles Leclerc, best of the rest in Q3 almost. He was up there once again, really fighting for it, and it's just a matter of time, I think, before he is in that Ferrari seat alongside Seb, unless Seb gets political and decides to veto it because he's scared, but we will see. On to the race itself though, and this all began at the start. Hamilton got bogged down as the lights went off. Vettel got a great start into turn 1. Bottas got past Hamilton as well. Raikkonen with nowhere to go, and then got a run out into up to turn 3. Hamilton late on the brakes, left a bit of space. Raikkonen locked up, and wheel-to-wheel contact, front left to rear right, and that Mercedes went spinning around. No one collected him, but within a matter of moments Hamilton had gone from first to last, and that was not the start that he wanted for the race. Just behind him into turn 1, Sergio Perez got locked up, nearly collided with the Renault, which I believe was Carlos Sainz, ahead of him, and he got pitched into a spin, spun right back across the track. Thankfully nobody hit him, and then he spun across the pit lane exit just as the two Williams cars were coming out of pit lane. They had started in the pits and they had to take avoiding action, something they probably didn't expect to do coming through the pit lane. But there was no damage to either car for Raikkonen or for Hamilton. Hamilton did complain of feeling as if something wasn't right at the back, but playing about with the tools he has available with the differential, etc., he was able to stop that and make that even better as the race went on. Raikkonen got handed a 10-second penalty, which for me was the right decision. Even Raikkonen at the end of the race admitted it was his fault, but the bit the penalty does bring up is the consistency, because Vettel done a similar thing to Bottas and Paul Ricard 2 races ago, and he only got a 5-second penalty. What's the difference? For me, there was none. 10 seconds was the right penalty, and that's what Vettel should have got back in France, but that is a different matter. Vettel was able to build up a lead pretty quickly, had 5 seconds within a matter of laps, and Brendan Hartley, as I mentioned, retired after 2 laps. He started from the pits, they were bolting the floor on late, they replaced the engine, had issues firing it up, got it out the pits, done a lap, but it wasn't to be, and they're still checking into that. And a horrible weekend for the New Zealander, and although this kind of wasn't his fault this weekend, I'm starting to fear for his future in that seat. I think they might bring someone else in soon, and that would be a real shame, because a lot of things have not been his fault, and especially this weekend as well. Hamilton came back through the field very quickly though. He was up to P6 by lap 11, so he came back through the field like a hot knife through butter very quickly. But it was Raikkonen who was the first to stop on lap 14, served his 10-second penalty. He'd been complaining of issues at the front. He likes a car with a lot of front end grips, felt he didn't have it. The wing was fine, there was absolutely no damage at all, and they done the pit stop and away he went. And we didn't see another pit stop from the front runners till lap 18, when it was Verstappen who decided to pit. Ricciardo pitted a lap later. And on lap 19 as well, Charles Leclerc, who had been having a lovely race up to that point, fighting away in the top 10, came in, took his pit stop, and had to retire as soon as it was finished. A 2.3 second stop from the Sauber team, but they didn't get the right rear on properly, and he pulled over to the side at turn 3 and was out of the race. That ended a point scoring run for him. He'd scored points in 5 of the last 6 races and been doing very well indeed. Sauber team did pick up a €5,000 fine for that as well, due to the unsafe release, but there was no safety car as he pulled up out of the way. Vettel pitted on lap 21, Bottas stayed out and took the lead. Vettel managed to stay ahead of Hamilton, who had got back up into P3 due to the pit stops, but he hadn't pitted himself. Bottas pitted next time round, rejoined in P3, which was a net P2 behind Vettel after Hamilton decided to come in. Hamilton let him pass in lap 23 due to the different strategies, and then pitted himself in lap 26, rejoining in P6. 10 seconds behind the 5th place car, which was Raikkonen at that stage. Now Hamilton then reeled off a number of laps, fastest laps. He was up to a second quicker at one point actually than those ahead of him, and he was catched up pretty quickly. to the rest of the field, and everybody had pitted by this point, gone from soft to mediums, except for the Renaults, who had gone from medium to the blue hard tyres because they didn't like the soft tyres at all. But Hamilton was catching quick. Ricciardo decided to pit in lap 31 for a new set of soft tyres, deciding to go for a two-stop. And then the very next lap round, Marcus Ericsson made it a double DNF for Sauber, coming into turn 1, doing well in the top 10. I think it was chasing down Esteban Ocon at this stage. DRS wide open, just got a bit wide onto the curb, and the rear end just snapped round on him, and he was away into the tyre wall. Totally all fine, looked scarier than it actually was. It ripped the front wheel off by hitting the tyres, but the Swede was totally fine. But it was a double DNF for Sauber, and not what they wanted, because they've been doing really well and looked like they deserved points once again. But that incident brought the safety car out, and this is when things started to get a little bit interesting. Vettel pitted, put on softs. Bottas stayed out. Verstappen and Raikkonen pitted for softs as well. Hamilton stayed out. So both Mercedes stayed on track to gain track position, putting them first and third, with Vettel in the middle. And they had better tyre degradation through the entire weekend, and that's why they went with staying out. They felt that the tyres were going to be better manageable. They just have to get through that initial heat phase after the safety car. Race restart in lap 39. Raikkonen passed Verstappen down the Wellington straight, but Verstappen repassed him on the outside of Luffield. Just kept his foot in it and just went right round. Raikkonen went for the inside at Copse. Verstappen came across him. Raikkonen used his experience and everything just to take a much more tighter line on the inside than he normally would. And it was a shame that Romain Grosjean didn't do the same thing, because behind, he was getting passed on the outside by Carlos Sainz. Grosjean got a snappy oversteer, and because he wasn't as much to the inside, and the fact that the Renault had squeezed him a bit as well, they two collided. Off they went into the tyre wall at Copse, both okay as well, but that obviously brought out another safety car straight away, and it was back out right away. Some people are saying racing incident, many are blaming Grosjean. He did get a snappy oversteer. You're obviously going to correct that, but when you look at Raikkonen doing the same thing with Verstappen at the same corner on the same lap, he took a tighter line because he knew the Red Bull was there. And that meant that if he did have a snappy oversteer, any issues, he had more space to catch it, whereas Grosjean had no room for error, and the snappy oversteer put it into the Renault. Very lucky for the Renault not to go flipping as well, as it caught a bit of air as well after the initial hit. But both drivers were fine, and that ended both their races. And question marks for me over Grosjean. I know he had a good race in Austria, he's a quick driver, but he's almost reverting back to what he was around about 2011, 2012. He just seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time too many times. And Haas are pretty much got the fourth best car in the grid right now. They're ahead the top three teams, so they can't afford to have one of their drivers DNFing all the time. So we'll see how that one runs. But the race restarted on lap 42, 10 laps to go. Vettel had a go into Brooklands, down the Wellington straight into Brooklands on Bottas, but Bottas got the elbows out this time, defended really well. Verstappen caught the grass coming out of the hangar straight, onto the hangar straight, sorry. That got Raikkonen past him a couple of laps after the restart into Stowe round the outside. And by this point the top four was Bottas, Vettel, Hamilton and Raikkonen, and they were within a matter of seconds each. It was phenomenal to watch. Lap 44, Vettel with DRS down the Wellington straight again, but again Bottas keeping the elbows out and keeping that position. Tried again into Copse, but again Bottas doing his best to defend. Hamilton was having to defend from Raikkonen as well, as they pulled away from the two Red Bulls behind. The Ferraris were much better in the slower corners, which meant that coming through that twisty first section down the Wellington straight, they were able to be very close to the Mercedes. But once they got through Copse and then up towards the fast sections of Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel, the Mercedes was in its element there, and it just meant that they could just pull the gap a little bit more just to try and stay ahead. Behind them though, the Verstappen spun off in lap 46. coming into the final chicane. It was initially thought it was due to being stuck in fourth gear because he retired just after. There was thought it was contact with Ricciardo. It didn't look like it to what I've seen. And it turns out he had a brake-by-wire issue on lap 1. It went away and it reappeared, and the brake just went to the floor, and the car just swapped ends on him, and that was the end of his race. Around the point that was happening though, Vettel had finally got past Bottas into Brooklands down on the DRS, further back than he had been on previous attempts, and he just chucked it down the inside. Looked really late. It was really dramatic on the camera, so it was, but it was a clean move, very good move from the German, and he was off into the lead. Bottas by this point struggling with the tyres. He had them on longer than Hamilton had than during the race, so you know he was starting to struggle at this point. Hamilton got past him as well, and Raikkonen did also, and the Finn would finish in fourth, Bottas holding off Ricciardo. At that point everything had sort of settled its way out, and despite Hamilton trying to catch up and everything else, it was Sebastian Vettel taking win at number 51 of his career, and he broke the streak that Hamilton had. Hamilton was going for his 5th win in a row at Silverstone. He's the only driver before today to have won at Silverstone during the hybrid era. But Vettel has broke that record, stopped Hamilton getting 5 in a row, and stopped him from making it 6 British Grand Prix in total. He took the win, and that means he's now got an 8-point lead in the championship. He took fastest lap as well, just to put the explanation point on this weekend. Hamilton second, great recovery drive from him, considering what happened at lap 1. The safety cars did help him out, of course, but he had the speed there to get back up, and he could have been at least into the podiums regardless, I think. Raikkonen took third. Great, you know what, I enjoyed Raikkonen's race. He made his mistake into lap 1, but he was very punchy, very willing to get in amongst it. Had a great battle with Verstappen after the second safety car restart, where they were side by side, going through Brooklands, then through Luffield and into Copse. It was really, really good battling. That wasn't the first time they battled as well either. Bottas fourth. For me, I think he deserved better, but the tyres just weren't there at the end, and he tailed off. Ricciardo fifth. Also, with that horsepower disadvantage that they've been having, they were only doing what was expected, was to come home behind the top two teams. Hulkenberg sixth, solid race from him. He avoided all the trouble, gained quite a few of his places at the start when everyone else was going, trying to avoid the action in front when Hamilton spun off with Raikkonen. Ocon took sixth. Good race for the Frenchman as well. Kept it on the track, kept out of trouble as well. So he took home seventh, for Ocon. Fernando Alonso took eighth, again outscoring his teammate. We're going to come on to Van Dorn in a minute. And it was a good race for him. He gained about 5 places from starting in 13th. And it puts an end to a poor weekend for poor week for McLaren with Bullier, as I mentioned at the start. Magnussen took ninth. Now, it was good points for Magnussen in ninth, despite the fact that the car is quicker. And the reason is that into that turn 3 on lap 1, he got collected by Grosjean with all the avoiding action and locking of brakes for the Hamilton and Raikkonen incident. And Grosjean caught the floor on the right hand side and it damaged it, so he had a lot of downforce lost. So to get 9th was really, really good from him. Gasly's 10th. Now this is, at this point in time as I record this, is provisional. He took 10th, good result considering all the troubles that Toro Rosso have had. He had an engine issue as well on Saturday, and all sorts, but he's currently 10th as I record, with Perez in 11th. But second last lap, Gasly was very punchy, very very fighty with Perez, and that's been looked at because they did actually bang wheels, those two, and it is possible that they might reverse that placing. Perez 11th at the moment. He spun on lap 1 as I mentioned earlier, but a good recovery drive to just miss out on the points. As I say, still might get that final point. Van Dorn was in 12th. I couldn't even remember seeing him at all during the race, and as much as I think Van Dorn is a brilliant driver, he's a really good young driver, the Belgium, he's being outperformed massively by Alonso in many races. And there's been rumours this week that it could be Carlos Sainz might get moved into that team next year. It'd be a Spanish all Spanish team with Alonso for 2019. Obviously McLaren have got Lando Norris on their books as well, who's currently in Formula 2 doing quite well as well. So Van Dorn needs to find some speed from somewhere quick, but with a car that just doesn't seem to want to do much, and a Renault engine that's about 80 horsepower down, give or take, based on who you listen to, against the Mercedes and the Ferraris, and it is a struggle to see how that will happen. Stroll and Sirotkin were 13th and 14th. They both finished on the lead lap, but that was just due to the safety car. As I said, when Perez spun, they nearly collected him coming out of the pits. Both Williams started from pit lane, as they had to replace the entire floor and rear wing under Parc Fermé rules. So they started from the pits, and the reason for that was they were having a stalling issue with the DRS when the rear wing went down after the DRS had been zone had finished. The rear wing went down, but the aerodynamics just wasn't attaching again, and it's the opposite of an aeroplane wing, where if it loses its lift, it just drops. Downforce is the opposite way, where instead of pushing to the ground, it just has no downforce at all, and they would have had huge accidents if they hadn't. So they got that replaced, started from pit lane, but again, they were just running around at the back and trying not to get collected in anyone else's business. The DNFs, 6 on this race, mentioned them all of course. Verstappen was the brake-by-wire issue. He did deserve some points. Good bit of racing with Raikkonen, done really well. Grosjean and Sainz obviously had the crash into Copse after the first safety car, and obviously Grosjean crashing at his teammate in turn 1 as well. Sainz was doing okay, he was doing pretty well, but he was caught there with that crash, and that's obviously put him out. Ericsson had the crash that brought out the first safety car into turn 1. It was a shame as well. That car is improving. Leclerc's obviously proved it. Ericsson's now fighting for points as well, having got some last time out in Austria, so it was a shame because he was in the points at the time. Leclerc, another solid weekend for him, and it was a mechanic error they believed to be, which meant the right rear wheel, I can say that easy enough, wouldn't attach properly, and Hartley obviously got everything replaced, but the engine had a firing issue. Managed to get out for a lap, but he brought it back in, and he was out of the race first of all. Championship wise, Vettel now leads by 8 points from Hamilton, 171 to 163. Those two are well ahead of Raikkonen, who's now in third on 116. It's been a number of races, I think that's 4 races in a row now for the Finn, where he's finished on the podium, but he's not won since 2011 or 2012, so it's been a long time since he's won. I'd love to see Raikkonen get another win before he ends up retiring, because I do think he'll retire at the end of this year. He's 38 years old now, and I think Ferrari are going to want to get Leclerc into that seat sooner rather than later. Ricciardo is 4th in the championship on 106, Bottas just behind him on 104, and then you've got the Formula B, if you want to call it in a sense, the second championship. Hulkenberg on 42 points, Alonso on 40, Magnussen on 39. Those three really close together. And it's the same when we get to constructors. Ferrari on 287, Mercedes on 267, so 20 points between them. Red Bull quite a bit back on 199. Haas and Reynolds in 4th on 70, Haas in 5th on 51. Force India and McLaren are tied on 48, so that fight for 4th is just going to go all the way to the end, I think, in Abu Dhabi, like I said in the pre-season video. And it is going to be very interesting to see who comes out on top, because for me the Renault is good, but I think the Haas is the 4th quickest car on the grid as it stands right now. But that is it for another race review. That's the end of the triple header as well. Next week there is no race. The next race is the weekend of the 20th and the 22nd, and it is the return of the German Grand Prix at the Hockenheimring in Germany, a home of Mercedes, a home of Vettel and Hulkenberg. So it'll be interesting to see how they all get on. And then we've got the following weekend after that is a Hungarian Grand Prix, and then it's the summer break. So I will be back for those 2 races as always, once again, to wrap everything up. Once again though, thank you very much for watching. Hit subscribe, like and comment. Until my next video, my name's Andy, and I'll see you again soon. Ta-ra.